everyone, I'm Kim and I'm going to be giving my speech today on the topic of emotions and physical health. So earlier in the semester, we learned about emotions and illness separately, and I was interested in the link between them because it is well known that college students such as you and me often are more likely to get common colds or the flu, especially during exam weeks, despite the fact that we should have healthier immune systems than older adults and the elderly. So I kind of went into some research and tried to find if there was a specific article that linked the two. And I actually found that the optional reading in the emotion section of the course, entitled Emotional Objectivity, Neutral Representations of Emotion and Their Interaction with Cognition by Todd et al., kind of did a good job of beginning to link the two together. She didn't specifically talk about college students and their health and how it relates to stress, but she did kind of talk about how emotions are related to biological processes. So she explains that emotion and cognition are unified processes, which is in contrast to the previous belief that they were both completely separate functions. She found that, in fact, these two processes are totally inseparable from one another. She goes on to claim that all events in our lives are filtered as good or bad relative to ourselves and our well-being, so our brain is able to kind of process what will be good and bad for our body relative to ourselves. And there have been a lot of studies that kind of look at this connection, and one that we talked about in class was the fMRI studies. So the study that Todd included was a study in which participants were playing a game against a computer, and the researchers were able to distinguish wins and losses as separate brain processes than just playing the game or when the game was tied. And this approach was using classical conditioning and reinforcement models to determine how the brain experiences and processes emotions. So then other studies that she included were able to directly link emotion-related brain activation to somatic and visceral signals, and those are biological processes such as heart rate and skin conductance. So that would be more relative to how emotions specifically interact with the body itself and how they will cause your body to have a reaction. So the study that she used was a study in which participants were asked to write a highly technical speech and read it to experts. And then she measured their somatic responses and found that stress had a direct effect on biological processes themselves. So this is a complex topic to fully connect and break down, but this connection can be a start for how you can link stress in college students and how they are more likely to become sick. So then she goes on to the idea of emotional and physical well-being and the balance and how they're influenced by the overarching theme of of the class itself, which is comfort versus conflict. So later in the article, Todd shares a study on currency and how people come to value one thing over the other and how these feelings guide our decisions in life. So because this process is so deeply rooted in our brains, things going towards negative feelings could cause an internal imbalance, between how you feel, and you could talk about the two selves and how we experience things on the outside versus the inside. This could lead to a higher stress level, which could ultimately affect our health as well. So it's kind of a positive feedback loop where it keeps going and we become more stressed, which makes us more unhealthy and so on. So there are more studies that show emotions are very important in guiding our decisions, and Todd focuses on the role of reward and punishment in this process, so she really focuses on that versus like the physical aspect or different things. So that's obviously the idea that I had to go off of based on her study, and she focused on that, and she shows and she shows that many mental disorders are rooted in emotions and their links to different bodily processes. So she does a conclusion on how emotional disorders are related to our physical health. So she talks about PTSD and stress hormones. So the emotional distress of PTSD is related to the biological processes of releasing stress hormones, and that can affect your health overall. This highlights the link between emotions and cognitive thinking, and I believe these links can also be used to explain some of the relationship between emotional stress and a decline in physical health. This topic is more complex, of course, than just a single link, but it could be part of the problem. And then we can go on to talk about the idea of comfort and conflict in a more specific context of like how students are focusing on reward and punishment, and college students, if they're upset, if they're like doing bad on an exam, or if they're really stressed out because they're studying, they might go on to treat themselves in a sense, and they will be more likely to have different sleep patterns, or to snack more, to watch more Netflix, or engage in different destructive behaviors. I don't know how destructive that could be, but for your health, it could be. So, in conclusion, this paper does a good job of beginning to examine the link between emotions and cognitions. And obviously, I'm excited to see what other links are uncovered in the future.